What's up everyone, it's Joe from the Wrong Channel, and today I'm doing something a little different yet again. Now, in the spirit of Halloween, this will be horror related, but it's also going to be a bit of a history lesson. Now, when people think about home video entertainment, they think about the usual things like DVD, Blu-ray, and then before that, VHS and Betamax. Now, there was also another form of media that didn't really take off quite as well as VHS did, but it came about just around the same time. And that is, of course, the CED form of entertainment. Now what CED stands for is, and you can see it on most of the, they have it printed on most of the labels for these, it's called the Capacitance Electronic Disc system. And basically what it is, it's kind of like a record, like a vinyl record, inside of a plastic case that you can't get to. Well, you're not supposed to be able to get to it anyways. The case is supposed to act as a kind of protective barrier. Now the reason for that is because the disc inside is actually similar to a laser disc, just in size though, and also the fact that it's a disc. But the way that it's read by the CED player is more like a vinyl record as opposed to a laser disc because it's analog technology. It's actually physically read, whereas a laser disc would be read by a laser. And because of that, the lifespan of the CED videos was limited. They estimated that it would be limited to less than 500 plays, whereas a laser disc, on the other hand, could feasibly be played an unlimited amount of times based on ideal situations and like precise laser and cleanliness and all that. But even with those standards, this would still be having a less than 500 plays lifetime. So that's a little bit of history on the CED. I should also mention that it's actually been in development long before VHS. It started its development in the 60s and actually planned to be released in 1974. But it actually wasn't released until the early 80s due to some complications within RCA, who was the main developer behind the CED system. Although eventually a lot more companies did get behind CED technology and release their own media, and I'll show you some of them today. I actually picked some of these up at a secondhand store. I just happened to be walking by and I saw one in their display window for $5. An American Werewolf in London for $5. Now, I'd actually been aware of the CED players and video format and all that for years now, but every time that I'd see something along the lines of CED in any kind of secondhand stores, it's usually some title that I'm really not interested in. You know, Disney made a lot of CED videos, and I'm not huge on Disney or anything like that, but when I started seeing horror movies pop up, I had to jump on it. Now, even though I don't have a CED player, these are still great artifacts from the past, you know, and they're still great to display. You know, you can just prop them up somewhere on a little stand, get them framed and hang them on the wall, what have you. Just a great little piece of history because it is a decently sized disc, as you can see. It's about the size of a vinyl record. But it also has great artwork on the front, and a lot of them have really stood the test of time over the years, because these are all at least 30 years old by now, because they stopped making them in the mid-80s. I think they actually announced in 84 that they would no longer be making them, and then they actually stopped in 85 or 86. But yeah, there's certainly great artwork on these, and because of its size, it's just great to display. And the other thing is, because the plastic case houses the disc and you can't get to it, it's different from a VHS in that, you know, a lot of times VHS cases were cardboard and they got beat up and dented and torn and all that, but these hold up a lot better. So you see the front has the disc, has the picture of the film printed on it directly on the case. And then on the back, a lot like a VHS case, it's got more pictures and then a summary, list of casting characters, things of that nature. But yeah, the first one they had was An American Werewolf in London, so I grabbed that. And then they also had John Carpenter's Christine. I'm a big fan of John Carpenter, so of course I grabbed this one too. And you can tell the difference immediately between this case and the American Werewolf in London case. This case has a white plastic, and this case has a blue plastic. Now, the reason behind that is because the earlier releases for CEDs, such as American Werewolf in London here, the earlier releases were released in mono audio, and the plastic color indicates what that is. So the white plastic is mono audio, and then the blue plastic is stereo audio. So the later films were mostly released in stereo, and that's what Christine here is. Now, the unfortunate thing about this one is that while the front side of it is still in great condition, the back, unfortunately, looks to have some kind of water damage, and the label is just kind of all bubbled up and kind of veiny. I mean, you can still read it and still see what it says, but it's just kind of bubbled up and it looks like it could peel off, but I'm not going to touch it too much. I mean, it's still adhered to the back of it pretty good, but it's just, I don't know, just a little detracting from it, I guess. And so, I've got a couple more here. In addition to American Werewolf in London and Christine, I have Jaws 3 and Jaws 2, and that's it. Because Jaws was not available because I'm sure somebody else jumped on it. Because why wouldn't they? Everybody loves Jaws, and only some kind of insane simpleton would actually go for Jaws 2 and Jaws 3. But rest assured, if they did have Jaws, I certainly would have picked that up as well, because it would be great to have the original trilogy, because we don't talk about Jaws the Revenge. But yeah, in terms of Jaws, I obviously love the original movie. As far as the sequels go, I actually do enjoy Jaws 2, you know? It's not very often that they can bring back the original cast for another movie. Obviously, they couldn't bring back Robert Shaw, and for whatever reason, they couldn't bring back Richard Dreyfuss, but they did have most of the original cast back. And it was a decent enough story. I mean, more or less it was the same story, but I still enjoyed it. Now, Jaws 3, on the other hand, that's a different story. I do enjoy Jaws 3, I will admit, but I enjoy it for different reasons. Entirely different reasons, and probably for the wrong reasons. I enjoy Jaws 3 because it's just over-the-top campy. It's kind of like Leprechaun in space, where they take the monster, the familiar monster, and put it in a different environment just to try something different. In this case, hey, let's take Jaws and put it in a water park. And yeah, Jaws goes to SeaWorld and see how that pans out. I mean, even if the movie itself isn't all that great, the premise is enough to get you interested. And the cheesy effects, especially the horrible 3D effects, particularly the ending. I'm not gonna spoil the ending, but I think most people who have seen Jaws 3 know what I'm talking about. The ending is very, very cheesy, but those are the kind of the reasons why I actually enjoy this one. It's fun for me to watch, but in terms of quality movie, I know it's not a quality movie. It's just a fun, campy, guilty pleasure of mine. But yeah, so those were a few CED movies that I picked up. I don't really have too many. Actually, these are the only ones that I have. I don't even have a CED player, but I've looked online, and they're kind of like Laserdisc players in that if you want a good CED player, it's going to cost you. But CED players are leaps and bounds cheaper than Laserdisc players. And I do think that CED collecting is probably cheaper than Laserdisc collecting. Again, because how it's a physically read disc really limits the lifespan, so that's something that collectors are going to keep in their mind. Whereas Laserdisc will last you a lot longer, these will not. So people probably just think to themselves, well, why would I want to collect them if they're not going to last as long? Whereas Laserdisc, I could just, as long as the player still works, I can watch the Laserdiscs over and over again. But for me, it's just more about the display. Because, again, these are great items to have on display. Like, you can just prop them up somewhere, get them framed, hang them on the wall. They're decently sized, not exactly the size of the original theater posters, but still a pretty good size. And they're easy to store too. You can just get like a cardboard box or something and just kind of prop them up next to each other, much like this. But yeah, just figured I'd do something a little different, sort of in the spirit of Halloween, because they are horror movies. Just maybe like a little bit of a history lesson, because I do love movies and I do love horror movies, so this kind of meets both criteria. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. I'm Joe from the Wrong Channel. Just keeping it real. No, not keeping it real, keeping it fresh. God, I wish I didn't say that. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.